How's it going, guys? I'm back with another build video, although this one is definitely a little bit different. This build is not just about Borderlands 3, but the Redux mod for Borderlands 3, which is a mod that really does overhaul quite a bit of stuff. I won't get into everything, really only the relevant stuff in this video. If you are interested though, I will have links in the description to the Nexus mods page and also to a video that'll show you how you can install it yourself. Now this build for Zane is a barrier drone setup. It uses the green tree, which is definitely a little bit out of the ordinary, and we're taking advantage of the shock damage from the conductor. So stick around after this short little montage showcasing exactly what this build can do, so you can see all the details and all the gear and skill trees that make it work. I hope you guys enjoy. Onto the skill trees, we're going to be starting off with probably the most interesting part of this build because this is our main tree. Zane's green skill tree is quite known for being very useless, but Redux actually makes vast improvements on everything about it. So getting on with it, of course, the first three skills are still kind of meh. I just dumped all mine into Ready for Action because it's the one I find that I like the most. But really, you can dump these 5 points into any distribution you'd like of these skills. It is purely to get down into the tree. And of course, Brain Freeze. Whenever you score a critical hit, enemies get slowed until they get frozen. It's just a way that we can freeze enemies without always relying on cryo weapons, and even with cryo weapons, we can guarantee that freeze way faster, which is very, very important for this build. We then put points into Rise to the Occasion. This is again a method of moving down the tree. However, Rise to the Occasion is actually very, very good for us as well because Salvation has been nerfed to the point of not really being usable unless you put 5 points into it, which is not worth it when instead you can rely easily on health regeneration, especially since we are using Barrier. Moving on down to Best Serve Cold, this skill is a lot of damage, but not only that, it helps us continue freezing enemies, especially in large groups. As on kill, they release a big Cryonova, dealing a fuck ton of damage, which, of course, helps us keep up Calm, Cool, Collected. If Zane freezes an enemy, his shield begins recharging. If Zane's shields are already full, he begins regenerating health, and if his health and shields are full, his action skill cooldowns and durations are immediately reset. This is how we keep up our action skills for the conductor to continuously be applying that damage at the maximum efficiency. As long as we keep freezing things, we will stay alive and we will keep our action skills active. And as we're freezing things, we also get Refreshment, which with just 1 point is 8% lifesteal. Now, this lifesteal isn't as good as it sounds. Rise to the Occasion is still very, very important because this lifesteal is completely contingent on actually freezing an enemy, so this isn't always active. It's good in a pinch, but I don't like only relying on it. And on to the other side, we have Nerves of Steel. Now this is where this skill tree really begins to shine. Zane gains increasing critical damage. The longer his shield is full, the greater the bonus. Now, with this stacking 15 times at 12% per stack, after 15 seconds, you are getting 180% critical damage. This is nuts. This is nuts for mobbing, as long as you can keep it up, and this is nuts for bossing. If you're able to hit a boss's crit, you're pretty much going to be able to one-shot them. It's almost a guarantee. And then to combo with this, I also pick up Futility Belt. This isn't necessary, but I find that lessening the effects of dot damage, because after you kill something, this converts all the damage that you take into non-elemental. This makes dot effects not as painful to deal with, and you can keep Nerves of Steel up longer, you can get it back stacking faster. I think it's a worthy pickup for just 1 point. And our capstone, a bonus 100% as long as our shields are up. Which, I mean, that is just doubling our damage for free, pretty much. So definitely a worthwhile pickup. And then, of course, we're using Barrier itself, All-Rounder to keep it around us entirely. And then all 3 of these augments, honestly, are pretty good. Charge Relay, Nanites, or some shite, and Retaliation. I recommend just using whichever one you want. And under our blue tree, this is pretty standard for Zane, really. 5 out of 5 in Violent Momentum and Violent Speed. Of course, we want to go fast, and we want to do damage based on how fast we're going. 1 point into Drone Delivery, as I want a way to throw grenades, especially because we're using a Radiation Hex, and that'll help with Radiation Chains for big AoE blast zones of absolute fucking radiation destruction. Now, I don't put any points in Salvation because, again, with Redux, it has been heavily nerfed, and I don't really think it's necessary with the other points that we have in the green tree. I have absolutely no issues surviving without it. And then a point into Seeing Red. This is just a very large kill steal bonus to make our kill steals far more effective, while also letting us activate our kill steals to just get things going the second we activate our action steals. And then I dump points into Cool Hand to get us further down the tree, and also because reload speed is quite nice. 4 out of 5 into Playing Dirty, because this skill is absolutely batshit broken. On kill, you have a chance to activate 5 shots consecutively of an extra projectile. I wouldn't go any less than 3 in this still, but I also wouldn't go up to 5. I find 3 to 4 to just be the perfect range where you're pretty much going to activate it anyways, and any more is kind of overkill. I put 1 point into Good Misfortune just because only relying on Calm Cool Collected can get a little stressful at times. I'm also getting 2 more points from my class mod here, but that isn't exactly necessary. You really just need the 1. 3 points into Violent Violence, as we kind of just had these stills left over and we need to move further down the tree, but also Fire Rate is quite nice to have on Zane. And then finally, Death Follows Close, which is just a big boost to your kill skills, a 25% bonus to how effective they are, and a 7-second duration boost. And for our drone, I am using Bad Dose and Static Field. Bad Dose just gives you a lot of chain damage, and Static Field is really good for keeping your shield back up, which in turn helps you stack up Nerves of Steel more and more. Just a quick word on Sentinel. In Redux, this does a shit ton of damage. I'll put a clip up here, but just, it gets a little nuts. Not discount the absolute beast that drone can be. So not only is it doing Bad Dose to just nuke an entire field of enemies for you with radiation explosions and Static Field to keep your shields up, it is more than just utility. We really just take this tree for Headsman's Hand, which is critical hit damage as a kill skill, and Commitment, which is stacking gun damage and cooldown rate as a kill skill. The only issue with this is getting down to these 2 skills, because all these skills are pretty meh. Deja Vu is pretty good if you're planning on using like high-powered pistols to one-shot, like the Moonshot, or maybe even like the Unforgiven or something, or sniper rifles or shotguns. Then I'd say dump your points into Deja Vu. I tend to play a lot more varied, so I'll sometimes be using sniper rifles, sometimes I'll be using assault rifles or SMGs. I use a lot of SMGs, I do like SMGs. So I kind of just put it into Mana Focus because Renegade is overkill on health regen. Deja Vu is pretty meh for most of the weapons that I like to use, and while Mana Focus only activates with an action still start, that extra little huge boost in accuracy can sometimes be pretty good for taking out a boss. And then I put the 1 point into Fugitive so that we can sprint and shoot, gives us more damage, gives us more mobility, very good. And then 2 points into Tunnel Vision just so we can get some accuracy and handling that actually benefits us. But these 2 points can also be put somewhere else if you don't really mind. Instead, you could maybe put them into Domino Effect or into Premunitus or into Borrowed Time if you think that you want a little bit more duration. But yeah, that about does it for the skills. And on our gear, of course, we're playing Zane, so our weapon choice is incredibly varied. So we'll start with the parts that are a little more static. Our conductor, of course, Zane gains up to 100% bonus shock damage based on his remaining action still duration. The more duration remaining, the greater the bonus. This effect stacks. So while we have 2 action stills up, if they are at 100%, we are getting 200% bonus shock damage. That's why it's so important to have our action stills up, and that's why Calm Cool Collected is so good for this setup. The rolls that you're looking for here are weapon crit, splash damage, and elemental damage, as you can see on this Seeing Dead. And as for the stills, unfortunately, I don't have any borrowed time on mine, which is really what you want. If you can get a roll that is 5 out of 5 borrowed time with a weapon crit damage, splash damage, elemental, buy a lottery ticket, but also that'll carry you entirely forever. And then following with the conductor, we are using a Colossal Old God for a extra 50% bonus shock damage. So that is a extra 50% boost to that 200% boost that we're getting. And then, as I said, recurring hex is what we're using for our grenade. I like using radiation. You can also use cryo if you'd like to be freezing some more fellows. But I enjoy watching everything go big, big boom. And then for our relic, we're using an Icebreaker Victory Rush. This gives us bonus damage against frozen enemies and also gives us bonus damage and movement speed after killing a badass. This is just a really solid overall relic for Zane. Your god roll here is going to be AoE damage, cryo damage, and shock damage. Now, if you find yourself using a lot of corrosive, I do not have one on me currently, but a flesh melter would also be really, really good. That gives you a stacking bonus to corrosive damage after you kill something using corrosive damage. And then onto our weapons. As I said, you can really use anything. Of course, you got things like the Redistributor and the KOs, and everyone knows those are really good guns, even in this, especially on Zane. Redistributor is really good with Calm Cool Collected if you have a cryo one. The World Eater is a Redux Pearlescent. It is pretty much the Blood-Starved Beast. I recommend just picking up some fire and corrosive ones and you'll be set. The Tattler is a really strong assault rifle. Very strong, very fast fire rate, very high damage. Multiple pellets already, so hitting a crit really does guarantee a very quick freeze with Brain Freeze. I've also especially been liking the Midnight Wisdom, which is another Pearlescent, and it kind of works as the Pitchfork from Borderlands 2 and the pre-sequel, where it fires a line of pellets that all do a lot of damage. And now this is what your setup will look like if you're going for some boss kills. The general rule between the Plague Bearer and the Kick Charger is if you're able to hit a crit reliably, Kick Charger, otherwise Plague Bearer and Guardian Angel if you need it. Really, you only need the Guardian Angel to hold if you're taking on a raid boss. I like to use it against Hemivorous and Vermivorous and a lot of the true trial bosses. It makes really quick work of them. Kick Charger, of course, makes even quicker work of bosses. This will let you one-shot a majority of bosses that have a head. And then, of course, for a shield, we swap to an Infernal Wish. This adds a projectile, which is really good with launchers, especially when you also pair it with a Toboggan, which gives you 100% amp damage on your next shot after sliding. Your best roll here is AoE damage, and then your elemental damages, of course. And then that one paired with an anti-freeze. I have a pretty decently rolled one here, but you really want 5 out of 5 in Violent Momentum, with splash and heavy damage preferably, and elemental damage if you want that god roll. Depending on the boss, this can also be kept as the conductor if you need that shock damage, or you can also go to a Seeing Dead if it's going to be a long boss fight with a couple immunities. But generally, the anti-freeze will carry you far for bossing. And that about does it. Hope you guys enjoyed. Like, comment, subscribe, all that. Again, links in the description to the download for the save file and again, links are in the description for a download to the save file and a tutorial on how you can download and play with the Redux mod. I hope you guys enjoyed. Be sure to follow my Twitch over on twitch.tv/ogreactica, and I hope to see you guys in the next one.